Hey, you, my friend. You have clicked on this video because you might have been told by some self improvement guru or some YouTuber telling you how porn changes your brain to the point that you now have an broken or addicted brain. And let's be honest, you probably bought into that, and you might believe that porn has changed your brain to the point where you can't do anything about it. But buckle up, because what I'm going to tell you in this video will leave you shocked. I know what you're thinking right now. Is it true that porn changes your brain? Is addiction caused by our brain? How long it takes to heal your brain back to normal? I will answer all your questions in this video. So if you're new to my channel, consider subscribing because here I upload tons of valuable content regarding quitting porn, masturbation and even lust. So let's get right into it. Number 1. Why the nofap space focuses entirely on the brain when it comes to porn or any other sexual behaviors. In the recovery space, this physical organ is constantly portrayed as the one and only culprit behind addiction. The quote hijacked serotonin and dopamine argument is most commonly used as the cause of addiction. It makes sense why they want your focus to be on the brain. Because the big pharma, the sex industry, the alcohol industry, they all enjoy the financial fruits that come from the focus in this hijacked brain narrative. But is this theory true? First of all, there is nothing available in scientific evidence that indicates that addicts are unable to stop using substances because of neuroadaptation or neuroscience. And there is nothing that suggests that brain changes that result from repetitive substance use is abnormal or some sort of malfunction in the brain. Research has shown that all repetitive activities, like for example, learning to play basketball, learning to play a musical instrument, learning to drive a car, learning to walk and talk, all change the brain. However, we don't say that people are hardwired to play the piano, or people are hardwired to drive the car, or that their free will has been hijacked by the piano. No, these are simply routine neuroplastic changes. And neuroplasticity, aka the brain changes, is a natural way for the brain to make it easier for the people to repeat any habitual behaviors. And remember, habits can easily be broken down and new habits can easily be formed if you do find a good enough reason to do so. Now the real question is, does the brain changes of a person who watches porn regularly? The answer is yes, but it's not what you think. The brain do changes and adapts when you watch porn regularly, but it's not different than any other habit or skill you learn or any other behavior that you engage in regularly. Remember, brain changes occurs in the formation of any habit or skill in order to adapt and remove the resistance in doing the behavior again and again. For example, remember when you were learning to drive your car? At first there was a lot of resistance, meaning that you had to think much about how you would shift different gears and handle the steering wheel and all that stuff. But as time went on, you learned it and you done it repeatedly. Now you drive your car without much thinking. It became easier for you now to shift between different gears, control the steering wheel and all that stuff. As our brain changes and adapts to make it easier to do the habit without much thinking. It's the same thing with porn. But here's something very important to understand, that the brain changes can't force you to do the behavior again, or don't create weird powerful cravings either. For example, have you ever felt like you were a slave to driving your car? Of course not. Even though it's a habit that involves all kinds of complicated neuroplastic changes and mindful habitual rituals, but we don't classify it as addiction. The only difference between porn and driving is, of course, different societal and social implications that we put on porn and not on driving. Like, just because porn is socially unacceptable, it's easier for the people to fall into the trap of thinking that, oh, just because it's socially unacceptable, that means it's because of hijacked brain. But it's not. Neuroplasticity, aka the brain changes, is a normal process. Like, imagine if our brain would not change no matter what. Do you think we would be able to form new habits or skills? Of course not. We wouldn't. These neuroplastic changes is what makes our life much easier. Because without it, it's impossible to develop new habits or skills. Habitual masturbation or porn use is no different to our brain than any other habit or behavior that we engage in regularly. Like, remember when you watched porn for the very first time? There was a lot of resistance towards it. You were like, should I watch it? Should I not watch it? Some of you might even waited for hours before watching it. But as time goes on, you learn how to use it, like what websites to search, what keywords to type in, and now you do all that stuff without much thinking, meaning that it just became easier for you to do it over and over again. The nofap space, or what I like to call the recovery space, tells you that, oh, just stop watching porn, focus on your life, and try to forget about porn, which simply never works. Like, what do you think what's better? Like resisting porn trying to forget about porn by using cheap techniques like keeping yourself busy even though you want it, or simply getting straight to the reasons why you want it. And once you realize that you want it, then you find out the reasons why you want it. Those reasons can then be subject to change. And now you can create this new path into a more happier abstinence. Instead of you having to survive, oh, day 90, here we go. I tried that many times. You have probably tried it countless times. Doesn't work. Trying to survive never works. But this works. Shifting your reasons. So I believe that this question of, oh, how long it takes for your brain to revire back to normal is pointless. Because there is no brain healing that needs to take place, as your brain isn't broken or addicted. What actually needs to happen is the change in the content of your mind, aka your thoughts, your ideas, and your beliefs around porn. That is what's actually driving your habit. Now hear me out. The brain and the mind are not the same, so don't mix them up. Because the brain is the physical organ that is present in your head, while the mind is what runs your physical brain. Because think of this, your mind is where you hold your ideas, your thoughts, your emotions, and you are your own mind. I mean, you have a consciousness. Because think of this, if you had no thoughts, no consciousness, no soul, whatever you want to call it, I prefer calling it mind, then would you exist? Would you have the life you have right now? Of course not. You would simply be a mindless suit of a meat. Like without it, you are simply a lifeless body. Just like a train with no engine to drive it down the tracks. Remember, your brain is just one of the middle cars. Your brain is a physical slave to the mind. In short, without thoughts, we can't even function or experience life physically, mentally, or emotionally. The nofap space and all these addiction experts, gurus and coaches, they all ignore the fact that we humans have a mind and we have this God-given gift of free will. Consider this as well. Even if your brain was truly messed up, you are always stronger than your brain chemistry. For example, let's say you work out really hard at the gym, even though your brain gives you signal to stop and that your body hurts, but still you push yourself through the discomfort and you complete even more reps. That shows why we are always stronger than our brain chemistry. So this whole argument about hijack dopamine and serotonin, it's pointless, it's bullshit. Simply realize that the problem isn't the brain chemistry. It's that the problem is your beliefs around porn. Once you will change your mind, you will also change your brain as a result. And that is a normal process that occurs whenever we move from one habit to another habit. Just like if you look at your life, you will be able to see many habits that you have already solved in the past, whether that be video games, junk foods, or any other habits. It's the same thing with porn. Porn is not different. What makes it different is the high value you have placed onto it and the myths that are keeping you tied to it. Also, there was a study that was done in 2021 by the Grubs, which simply says that most people who engage in problematic porn use outgrow their use of porn successfully. The question you should be asking here is that how the hell these people are able to quit if their brain is damaged or broken? But we have seen that people quit all the time despite their brain being changed or whatever shit. So stop believing in all of these lies of nofap. There is a lot of misinformation out there. And once you will debunk all these myths, you will see that quitting porn is an actually walk in the park. Now last thing, to anyone who used this image to define addiction, I have a question for you. Tell me what is the blue and the purple part of the brain region represents. You don't even know what that is, yet people believe it blindly. It's like saying, oh, I don't have any knowledge about this, but look, that's true. Come on guys, it's time to grow up. Peace, I'm out.